Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I am delighted and honoured to be joined by Harry Trueman, who was named as one of the top 100 women, inspirational women in the West a few years ago. Is that true?
Yeah, that was 2019. It was a bit of a while ago now.
I'm just checking to see whether you remembered. So congratulations. So thank you very much for joining me. So shortly going to be president of ALA.
Yes, well, not for a couple of years. I think it's 2024 that I'll be president. So I've still got a bit of a run up, which is good.
Fantastic. Well, look, thanks for joining us today. What I'd like to do is just tell us a little bit about you, your journey into how you got into property and estate agency, and then we'll unpack and share your learnings with everybody that's watching it. So thank you.
No worries. In our not quite lunchtime learnings, the late lunch learnings.
late lunch learnings, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so where do you want me to start?
At the beginning. What made you decide to become an agent?
Well, like most people in this industry, I sort of just fell into it, and I really, really want us to get to a point where people stop saying that one day. I really want people to start saying, I wanted to be an estate agent, I wanted to be a letting agent. That's what I decided to do. But no, I'm just like everyone else, that I just fell into it and found that I was really good at it and I loved it. And so I stayed. I came back from Australia when I was about 21. I went for years traveling after university. And I came back from Australia and I'd only been a waitress beforehand. And I came back, I was skint, and I was sort of like, oh, it's time to start being serious now about my life and about my career. And I was really lucky that my friend got me an interview for a little service department and letting agent based in Cardiff Bay. And I was desperate to get this job. So I sort of really over prepped for the interview, to the point that I knew their turnover, I knew their profit, I'd looked at their company's house, and actually I didn't realize the office that I was interviewed in, I was interviewed on the sort of lower mezzanine level, and on the top mezzanine level, the managing director was actually there during my interview, but I didn't know that he was there. So when I was being interviewed and they were asking me all these questions and I was sort of quoting all their company's house stats, he sort of popped his head up over the mezzanine and was like, how do you even know that? So yes, I really over prepped, wanted that job, was sick of being a waitress. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I was just like, I'm done with waitressing. I'd applied to loads of office jobs, hadn't got any because I didn't have any experience, and got the job. And that was the start of my journey in property.
Okay, so that's really interesting. I just want to unpick something there, because I think there's a massive lesson that you've shared, which is about prepping for interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
yes.
I'm sure you've interviewed a lot of people over your time, and
yeah.
And how frustrating must you find it that people who haven't gone to the same extent, well, I'm not sure people will go to the same extent of what you've done, but I mean, the point you've shared there is fantastic about prep. I mean, that is exceptional. So you must find it frustrating. I
do, yeah. I think I've interviewed many people in my time, and it's even on phone interviews, when people don't prep and they don't know anything about the business, that frustrates me. But even more when it's a face-to-face interview. Like, if you've taken time to come in and meet with me, at least know the business, at least know a little bit about what we do and a little bit about our history. It's all on the internet to be able to find. And it's also, I really get really frustrated when people, like, the easy questions in interviews, the ones that are going to be asked. What are your top 3 strengths? What are your weaknesses? And people don't have an answer ready for that. I'm like, come on, what did you think I was going to ask you? Why haven't you written this down beforehand and remembered this? So yeah, prepping for interviews, big lesson. I think it's the only reason I got that job all those years ago. And clearly I managed to impress them from the get-go with my research skills.
Fantastic. So hopefully I've done my research. So from there, you ended up going to Sequence. So
yes.
What made you decide to change, to go from the service office to Sequence?
Well, it's actually, it was one of the biggest lessons I actually learned was at that first job, because I was only hired on a 3-month contract. And basically what they kept doing is every 3 months when my contract would run out, they would extend it again, because they would say, oh, we still want to keep you, so we'd extend it. And I remember lying in bed one night and thinking, I have to keep this job. I have to do everything I can to make myself the most valuable person in that office. So they have to keep offering me another contract. And one day they'll give me a permanent contract. So I basically became like the ultimate yes man. And every time anyone would ask for someone's help or to someone to do something new, I would put my hand up and be like, yeah, I'll do it. So for instance, one morning meeting, the MD said, I'm going to need some help with somebody helping me do cold calling to businesses to see if they need to get long-term people in to stay in our service departments. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And he said, have you ever done cold calling before? And I said, nope, but I will learn. I will give it a good go. and so that's sort of how I started off my career, is just being the yes man, being the person who's always up for learning, always up for trying new things. And the way I got into Sequence actually is that, again, in a morning meeting one morning, the managing director said, our lettings division, it only had one person in it at the time, just a lettings manager. Her name's Kath. Kath needs a bit of help in lettings. Would anyone like to go and work in lettings maybe one morning a week, just helping out with viewings, helping out with paperwork? And obviously, yes man over here. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I went into helping out in lettings and did that sort of briefly, doing a bit of negging for a little while, learning a bit about the industry. And from there is where I then went into a very different world of corporate property management within Sequence then.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to the corporate world against the independent world. But again, unpicking something that you just said there, which is really interesting for me. You're always up for learning. So yes. Where did that always up for learning come from?
I don't know. I think it came from this desire to keep my job, to make myself the most valuable person in that room. And I thought, the more I know, the more they'll have to keep me. So that was my sort of where I came from, my standpoint of just say yes to everything, learn everything, really. And that stood me in good stead, really, for the rest of my career.
Amazing. Okay, so you went to the corporate world, and
yes.
How did you find that? What did you learn from that?
Okay, so yeah, I went into the corporate world, and the department that I looked after, the department that I worked in, when I started, we managed about 3,000 properties from this one office all over the south of the UK. And in the 4.5 years that I worked there, they moved various different property management into my department. So by the time I left, we were looking after about 6,000 managed units from one room. And there's not much I didn't see looking after 6,000 properties, not many situations that I didn't experience, because there's all manner of ridiculous things happening when you look after 6,000 properties. And you've got, I progressed up there quite quickly. So I went in as a property manager. Within about a year, I'd done my ALA qualification and I was on a senior plan. I then went up to managing a team of 3. I looked after a team of 3 property managers for a year. Then I went up to a team of 6. Then I went up to a team of 12 property managers. So within 4.5 years, I'd had about 3 or 4 promotions, and all in property management, and a renewals team I ran as well. So it's sort of lots of lessons there, very high pressure, very, you're sort of expected to work very long hours to deal with the workload. The workload is very high, lots of staff turnover. So again, I became a bit of a good property management recruiter. I knew what I was looking for straight away. And I basically had CVs on my desk every day. And if I didn't have one interview every day, I'd be like, where's my interview today? I interview every single day. So yeah, lots of lessons in that 4.5 years. Predominantly, it was sort of what I'd already gone in with as be a big sponge. And I know some people have different views on corporate agency. I always saw it as this big sponge that I could just get as much information and as much learning out as I could, and really just experience all these different situations within this huge department of properties and take that learning someday and use it somewhere better. So for me, I have really positive memories of that place, of just lots of learning and ridiculous things, but yeah, lots of stuff.
Okay, so what do you think makes a great property manager then?
Okay, so the best property managers, there's two things. You've got to be very organized, and you've got to be so strict with your time. And by organized, so where I used to work, what we used to do is we all worked to a schedule, and we all worked to the same schedule. So I knew that every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I would chase my works orders, and I'd need to update every single works order. And my contractors knew that I would update my works orders every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I would ring my contractors, and if they didn't answer the phone, I would keep ringing them. And I used to have a favorite contractor called Steve, who in a portfolio. I used to manage a portfolio in Brighton, first of all, from Cardiff, which is, obviously quite far away.
As you do.
Yeah. And once I remember I rang Steve on repeat 17 times until he answered. And then when he answered, he's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "It's Wednesday, Steve. Just give me my updates and I'll leave you alone." So yeah, property managers, you need to be very organized, work your schedule. And the other thing that's so important that people don't get is communication. It is just telling everyone all the time what you're doing, telling the tenants what you're doing, telling the landlords what you're doing, chasing the contractors. It's all about communication in property management.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so coming back then, so going from being your own property manager to managing 3, managing 6, managing 12. What lessons did you learn from, as it was growing and growing and growing, that you could help people with? Because there's a lot of people that are growing their teams at the moment. And I'm sure a lot of it, as you said, you need to be organized, you need to schedule your time, you need to communicate better. But again, anything you can add to that, please? I
think so. I went from not managing anyone to going sort of straight into a team of 3 and then that growing. So the sort of my management style changed, and it changes. It's even changed now since I've been back in independent. But I think for me, one of the things that I've always carried on doing since managing staff is having those regular one-to-ones, is having those monthly catch-ups with your team in private, where they can tell you exactly what's going on, how they're feeling. And also you just like my original interview, is preparing for those one-to-ones. So as a manager, although you're letting your member of staff come to you and tell you what they think they've done well that month, where they might have thought there might have been issues, make sure you do your research in advance, so that you're maybe looking through their notes on the system, checking if they've done the processes, so you can use evidence to sort of say to them, right, okay, so maybe you're not doing this so well, this is where I've noticed this, and use the evidences, because obviously it's much harder to argue with evidence if you can present it to someone. So yeah, the one-to-ones for me were always so important, and I still to this day carry them on now, even though I still line manage quite a large team within CGT. They all get monthly one-to-ones, about an hour, 2 hours of my time every month.
Wow, that's amazing. So how many would you be managing their number one-to-ones?
Right now, how many do I have to do?
Yeah.
So right now I have a team of direct reports. I think it's about 8 people now that report directly to me, so have monthly one-to-ones. So it's a lot, and it's a full day a month of one-to-ones, but I just think it's so important to have that time to make sure that you're checking in with your member staff, and they're having your time as well. They're having being able to check in with you, because it means that you can pick up things early on. You can stop issues before they become massive ones, and you both just have really open lines of communication then as well. Okay,
so you then went to CGT, and you became operations manager.
Yes.
So I'm a firm believer on systems and processes.
Yeah.
And I understand you totally revamped those. So again, what's the importance of having systems and processes, and how does that help your team, your colleagues?
Well, I came from that corporate background, which is all systems, all processes, everything very rigid. And when I joined CGT is at the point that I joined it was about 29 years old as a business. And I remember starting and being sort of amazed by how much work I had to do in terms of systemizing everything. One of my first projects was that every branch, so for the 5 branches, they each had their own letter deck. So there was about 250 different letters for the whole business, slightly different, but sort of the same. And one of my first jobs was just sort of simplifying all of those and getting just one letter deck for the whole business. And it means that for me, so I'm very much, I preach this to my teams all the time about the McDonald's theory. So that if you went to McDonald's in Edinburgh and you ordered a McChicken sandwich, you wouldn't expect there to be a quarter pounder in there. You'd expect there to be a McChicken sandwich. And this is what I say to my teams all the time, is that if a landlord or a tenant cross branches, maybe they're a landlord with Cheltenham and they're a landlord with Stroud, they need to have the same service, they need to have the same processes, they need to receive the same things from both branches so that they're used to the same sort of standards. So that was one of my first things when I joined CGT, was bringing that system background from corporate, where I was very, very used to doing everything in a certain way, and building that into CGT then. So I was ops manager for about a year, had a great year. I remember the old MD, he said, because he also was from corporate background as well. And he said, one of the great things about CGT, he said, is if you have an idea, you just come to me and we'll just do it. He said, when you work in corporate, you have an idea and it's got to go to a board, and then it's got to go to another board, and they've got to approve it, and they've got to discuss it and so, and it could take weeks or months or never, ever happen. And he said, that's not the same as CGT. If you have a great idea, we just discuss it, we decide, and then we just implement it the next day. And that was basically what I did for a whole year. I restructured departments. I project managed in a whole new property management software, changed staff around, changed processes, had a great year. Still ongoing.
Good. And then what happened after that?
So I actually left then. I left the industry very temporarily. I now call it my sabbatical from CGT. I basically went to work in social housing. So I went to work for a company called Home Group. They're based up in Newcastle, but they're all over. And I went to work on their criminal justice contract. So it was to do with housing people when they come out on bail. And it was really interesting. And I was sort of driving all over the country, doing surveys on properties and loving it. And the old MD before me, he decided to retire. So the owners of CGT, they basically called me up one day and they said, can we go for a coffee? And I was like, oh, okay. I'd been gone for about 5 months by then. So yeah, fine. We can go for a coffee. And they basically said, the old MD's leaving. We don't want anyone else. We don't want to recruit. We just want you to come back, be our MD. And that was it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And that was 4.5 years ago now.
Wow. Okay. So going from operations to MD.
Yeah, at 29.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So congratulations. So again, what other lessons have you learned actually? So how many staff do you now manage, or colleagues do you now manage?
So we've got 40 staff at CGT, 40 staff, 5 branches. We, in the time that I've been here as MD, obviously we've had things like pandemics and stuff to deal with, and we had tenant fee ban first of all, and then we had pandemic. So it's always new things, and I think one of the lessons we've learned as a business is to become more agile, which I think lots of businesses learn with during the pandemic, and we've made sure that all our systems are now accessible from home and things like that. So that was one of the big lessons. We were very much sort of old school before. We all had desktop computers and phones that couldn't be transported and things like that. So that was one of them. Also, one of the big things that I go on about is sort of looking at every opportunity and sort of investigating every single opportunity. So within CGT, we'd only done lettings for 30 years when I joined as MD. And we used to every year have a few landlords come to us and say, look, I need to sell my property. Do you do sales? And we'd say, no. And they'd say, okay. And we'd sort of wave $4,000 commission out the door to our competitors. So after a long time badgering the owners, finally managed to get them to cave. And we opened CGT Sales in 2019. which has been really exciting to have that sort of estate agency division. I've never worked in a estate agency before, so it's all been new to me, which has been really, it's very different to lettings. I've discovered that I'm very, very impatient, and I like lettings, that things are instant, they can happen straight away, whereas sales is a much longer, slower process, as you know.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting, and looking at that opportunity. We've also started doing commercial property now. We're just about to launch. We've sort of already done a bit of a soft launch on a service apartment offering, CGT Stays, we're calling it. So just looking at all these opportunities, and my dream for CGT is that anyone could walk through the door and have any property related query, and there would be somebody here to help them. So it's just investigating how we can do that with the business.
Okay, so where's that vision come from then?
I don't know. I just don't like turning down opportunities, I guess. I just think that as you know, as human beings, we have to evolve and adapt. As businesses, we have to evolve and adapt. And as things change in our economy, we need to make sure that we are, as a business, changing with it. And I say to the team all the time, we do not want to be a Blockbuster. We want to be a Netflix. And that's sort of where that vision comes from.
Okay, thank you. So, we want to be a Netflix. Okay, so coming back, okay, there's people on here that would like to find more landlords, as I'm sure you do as well. Obviously, I know you've had a recent big acquisition, so that's just one way of getting landlords. If they're people starting out today, getting into lettings, and they want to find some landlords, what tips can you share with them, please? Okay,
so if you're starting from nothing, it's going to be slightly more difficult because you don't have a big database behind you. So if you're starting from nothing, the things that I would advise to do are so letters. So there's various companies out there that can help you with it, or you can just create your own letter ladders where you're contacting properties that are already on the market or have just come off the market, to ask them to come on with you, or to change up their marketing, that sort of thing. So the letters is really important if you're starting from nothing. We also do a lot of sort of Gumtree surfing, we call it. So we're checking on Gumtree for rental properties, calling those landlords who are advertising, and trying to get them to let us come out and give them a valuation, get in front of them. That's always the aim of the game. The other big thing is networking. So it's sort of being in your local community and being the go-to person for property. You can do that in the sort of physical space. There's lots of business networking in most towns. My managers are all signed up. They go every week to various different networking groups. All this sort of online networking in terms of being present in your community groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, to make sure that if people are asking questions about property, which they do regularly, you're the person that's responding. So for instance, there's a huge Cheltenham Facebook group that my husband is my Cheltenham manager, Sam. He's in, and every day there's somebody in there asking about property. And he's always the one. He's actually like a recommended person now for that group, but he's always the one to respond. And if he doesn't respond, the group admin tag him in then instead. So it's just always being the go-to sort of person for property, and making sure you're using offline and online methods to do that. Some other things that we have good conversion of valuations from is instant online valuation tools. So have those on your website, but also have them on Facebook ads as well. You get a lot of leads through from those, and then it's about converting those then into business.
Okay, brilliant. Something I want to touch on actually that you talked about before, and you mentioned the word stress and pressure, and going from looking after 3, 6, 12 to managing 40 people and 5 branches. How do you cope with all the pressure and all the stress?
Good question. How do I cope with all the pressure and all the stress? I mean, I do. I just don't really know how I do it. I think for me, going back to my property manager background, it's about being organized. So it's about making sure that I'm very strict with my time management, that I live by my diary, and never sort of overbooking myself, making sure that I've got gaps within my day in order to catch up on things. So definitely, I think time management is a big mechanism for me of coping. I'm always a sort of an early bird person. So by about sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, my brain starts to slow down a bit. Whereas I know that I'm an early bird. So I get up at 5:30. I like to be looking at my emails normally by about 7:30. I'm in the office by 8. And I love that first hour before anyone gets here. And I've done it for years, even sort of when I was back in corporate property management. That first hour is the hour of the day for me, when I get the most done, because the phone's not ringing, there's no one around, sort of catch up on everything you need to. And then when the phones start ringing, when people start coming in asking you questions, you've got more time to give them there because you know you've already done a chunk of stuff already. So yeah, being prepared is a theme of this a little bit, and and time management and being strict with your time. I think, it's a commodity, our time, and we need to be strict with it, and we need to manage it effectively to make sure we get things done.
Okay, so I know a lot of people that really struggle with their time. How do you organise what's the most important things to get done and get those done first of all? And I know we've got Sophie on here, dealing with stress and pressure, wine, and talking to colleagues of the same industry. So thanks, Sophie, for joining us and for watching. Appreciate it.
Soph. Yes, Sophie, wine.
The secrets come out.
There needs to be like some sort of estate agent and letting agent wine created. They're going to be a hit. So your question was about where I prioritize, how do I make sure that important things are done?
Yeah.
Well, I guess different things are different priorities, don't they? And I think for me, what I like to do is if I know I've got a meeting coming up, for instance, or I've got to do a presentation, I will block out time in my diary as if it was for a meeting. So I'll put it in my diary 2 hours, say, to prep for that meeting. And then I like to do the, what was it? There's a time management method with the stopwatch, where you basically do like 20 minutes on a stopwatch. And then when the timer runs out, then you get up, you walk around, have a cup of tea, go back, and then you set your timer again for 20 minutes. And you only do that one thing for that 20 minutes. So you close your Outlook. That's always a big one. Close the Outlook down and just focus on one thing at a time in order to get it done. I always find that helps me.
Really, really useful. Thank you. So PropertyMark. So what made you decide to first study for it and then become a regional exec and now president-elect and soon to be president?
Well, VP at the moment, president-elect next year.
Okay, sorry.
So why did I study for PropertyMark? So it was basically when I was in Sequence, it was a requirement to do your level 3 in order to step up to do the senior plan, to take on a team of staff. So I wanted to do it initially so that I could get that promotion. I think when I was going through the course, I started to learn how much I'd just been blindly taught to do in terms of corporate property management. So I always use this example when I'm teaching, because I run level 3 revision sessions with my team now. And I always use the example of when I was a property manager, I was just taught that you renew a gas cert and you pop a copy in the post to the tenant with a cover letter, and that's how you process a gas cert when it comes back in. And when I did my level 3, I learned that actually it's legislation that a tenant has to receive a renewal copy of their gas cert within 28 days of it being renewed. And I was sort of like, that's why we do these things. And I think that's what the qualification gave me. It gave me lots of sort of backing to, this is why I do that, and more insight into why we do those things. So I did my level 3 qualification nearly 10 years ago now. And I didn't become a member until 2015. I talk about this quite a lot. It's because the Sequence wouldn't pay for my membership at the time. So I basically had to wait, and then got my dad to sub me the membership fee so I could pay him back. So that I became a member in 2015. And then I became a regional exec in 2018 then. And it's just been a fantastic journey with PropertyMark since then. It's such an amazing group of people. I'm so honoured to be part of them. The knowledge that they have, the execs, there's sort of no lettings question that you could ask that you wouldn't have the answer to in the groups that I'm in. And it's just a really good group of people who all really just want to be the best at what they do and demonstrate that we are an industry of knowledgeable professional people.
Okay. And I think you summed it up really nicely there. It's about being knowledgeable, being trusted, because what do most people think of letting agents and estate agents?
Yeah, they were dodgy.
So how, apart from, obviously PropertyMark, how do you think agents, letting agents, estate agents can get that name out there, that they are trusted advisors, they do a fantastic job, they're looking after maximizing somebody's assets, they're helping, with all the compliance and legislation as well. What more can be done to get that message out there?
I think it's all to do with qualification, really, of for agents. And I think whichever qualification you choose to do, obviously I would advocate the PropertyMark ones. But if you are opting to get qualified in what is currently an unregulated industry, then that is clearly going to set you apart from your competitors who aren't bothering to get qualified. It's going to show that you are trusted, that you do know what you're talking about. I've hired people who have been in the industry 10, 15 years, have never done their qualification. And when they join me and I say, right, now it's time to do your qualification, even though they've been in the industry 10, 15 years, they're still learning new stuff. When they do the qualification, they're still like, oh, I didn't know this. Oh yeah, that's interesting to know. So it just shows you how important it is to do that qualification and make sure you're keeping your learning up to date, because we're in an industry that is ever changing. There are things that happen all the time that change. And as an ALA member, it's difficult for me to keep up. So I have no idea how people who aren't members or who aren't, don't sort of have that regular contact, how they keep up.
Okay. So one of the things then, a couple of final questions, and then I'll let you go. And I'm really grateful for your time. So thank you. So one of the questions that somebody's asked me is, how do you convert let-only landlords into fully managed landlords? Have you got a couple of tips that you're happily share?
Yeah, so we a couple of ways that we do it. So we run landlord seminars, which we get our managed landlords in the room too, and we also invite as many.
I think we're joined by my dogs.
Hello, doggies.
Go on, out you go. There you go. It's all real, doesn't it? Both of them are here.
They're very excited.
Chirping as well in a minute as well. Sorry. What was I saying? So how do we convert them? So yeah, so we get them to come along to our landlord seminars, because a lot of them just really don't understand the complexities of how much legislation there is at the moment that they need to know about. And when they come along to the seminars and we start talking to them about it, that really helps them sort of go, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know about all of this, and I should know about this. So that's definitely why they would come to us for management. Another way that we've been having a lot of success lately is one of the big things that landlords are concerned about at the moment is rent arrears. As cost of living goes up, many landlords are concerned that rent's not going to be paid. In CGT, we have this amazing rent guarantee policy, which means that it's only £20 a month and you get 12 months worth of your arrears covered. And we are able to offer that to landlords on a rent collect service. So what we've been doing is we've been sort of upselling landlords from the let only to the rent collect, which obviously is a lower management fee than a fully managed service, but you're still getting a monthly fee for that to process the rent, to chase those arrears, and to protect that rent for those landlords. And we've had really good success with that. Brilliant, thank you. So final question. You talked about your thirst for learning. Mm-hmm. So any recommendations for books, podcasts that you like listening to that have made a difference and helped you?
So I don't really read that many business books because I have a degree in English literature and creative writing. And so when I read fiction because I read for escapism rather than I sort of spend all my time thinking about the business. So when I read, I sort of read to get away from that, not to think more about it. I do listen to podcasts though. I listen to podcasts when I run. And the two that I like is Diary of a CEO. That's my favorite. I listen to that every single week. Stephen Bartlett is just really love the way he does his podcasts and the guests that he gets on. I think they're amazing. I also listen to the High Performance podcast as well. And then obviously there's some of my colleagues in the industry so you've got Megan 18's Lettings in a Nutshell podcast as well. Need to give her a plug. So my main one, and the one I always sort of harp on about, is the Diary of a CEO. That's my favorite one to listen to every week.
You better mention Katie Griffin and
House of Property as well. Don't forget that one.
It's a definite trouble. So no, they're all exceptional. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. I also wanted to just say a personal thank you for running. Was it a 10K that you hadn't done for a long time? In order to support computer for schools, and as a result of that, you raised, I think, just under £800, which was incredible. Which will definitely help, I think, about 7 or 8 different people in your area. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for starting that whole it's not a charity, what would you call it, campaign. Thank you for starting that, because you've raised, is it 110,000 now, 120,000?
£120,000 now, and 1,170 tablets and laptops have gone to schools throughout the UK. So
it's amazing.
Thank you for everybody who's got involved and who's going to carry on getting involved, because the aim is to get up to 200,000. So it's been absolutely amazing, the continued support from everybody in the property industry, which is amazing. You have been an amazing guest. Thank you. Really grateful for your time. If people want to find you, get hold of you, where's the best place, please?
The best place is probably LinkedIn. So it's just my name on LinkedIn is where I tend to be found if you want to get hold of me. Brilliant. But thank you very much for inviting me on, Stephen. It's taken us a little while to get this day together, so we did it in the end.
Patience, we got there in the end. Yeah, patience is a virtue. But thank you very much. Thank you everybody for watching this afternoon, this evening, this morning, whenever you watch it or listen to it. Incredibly grateful, and have a good week, everybody. Thank you. Bye.